with these things, it's useful to know a little bit about the background of the person speaking, so that you can make a reasonably good judgment about whether to trust me or not. I was a web manager I worked in local government for 13 years. I was a web manager for a local authority in Scotland for 10 of those, and then left local government and set up a consultancy agency specializing in accessibility. We did a lot of accessibility audits, worked across the public sector and private sectors. It's very kind of Oliver to say that I'm an accessibility expert. I would not class myself now as an accessibility expert. 15 years ago, I might have been happy with that, but we went on and did other things for about 7-8 years, and have really only just come back into an accessibility specialism, fueled by LocalGov Drupal, I have to say. So although we've kept abreast of accessibility, to be an expert in accessibility these days, you do need a very broad technical base, and a much more detailed knowledge of WCAG and guidelines, and especially the way disabled people use technology now, which I don't have currently. And what I'm going to share just now is really what I've learned in the last couple of months, doing more auditing, exploring more of the tooling that's out there, and starting to identify ways of working that make sense to me. So I will probably say some things today that aren't true, or that are opinion. So feel free to either challenge me now or go away and check and tell me. I'm not precious about this stuff. So some of accessibility is black and white. Quite a lot of it is about judgment, and unless, I don't know how many I'm not going to ask the question, but yeah, we've all got disabilities of some sort. We've all got things that we're less able to do. But when this is kind of like a middle-aged white male thing in general, we're making assumptions about the way disabled people use the web. Accessibility is largely about making it easier for disabled people to use our stuff. So because I personally don't have any significant disability other than having to wear glasses now, to be an accessibility expert, I basically have to, it takes a lot of empathy, humility, and you have to kind of leave your ego at the door. So we always tried to say, when we did formal audits for websites, for companies, for local government, the purpose of the audit is not to find problems. It's not a successful audit the more problems we find. The successful audit is the one that removes barriers for disabled people. And I just have one example from this week, actually, just to give a very quick sort of specific example around that. There's a WCAG guideline that says every piece of content should reside within a landmark. Now, some of this is technical. If you don't understand what these things mean, don't worry. On the LocalGov Drupal theme, the skip link, the first link that you tab to if you're using a keyboard, was sitting outside of a landmark. So an automated test revealed that this link was not within a landmark and should be moved within a landmark. So developer, to fix that, put it within a nav element, which, although it technically fixed the checkpoint and the warning went away in the automated test, it actually wasn't of any benefit to anyone who would be using it, because keyboard users, who are the main beneficiaries of skip links, sighted keyboard users, would never know that it was in a landmark or not in a landmark. Users who do use landmarks now have a fairly redundant nav as the first element in the document that gets read out to them when they're navigating by landmarks. So we got around it by moving the link into the header element, which was the first landmark. But just following the guidelines and following automated testing by route is not always the best solution. You do have to have a little bit of a thought about the way disabled people actually use technology. So anyway, enough about that. I'm going to share my screen. Can I do that myself, Will?
Yeah, I think present now, it's bottom right if you're looking at the same
setup. Oh yeah, okay. Now I don't know how this is going to look for you. I use a large monitor, so I'm going to share my entire screen, and let me know how this looks for you. Okay. is it legible? You should see at the moment. Let me just open up. Is that legible for everyone? You should see I've got LocalGov Drupal docs open on one side, and I now have Devtools open on the other.
Yep.
Okay, good. So very quickly, I'm using, this is Microsoft Edge I'm using initially on a Mac. So this is a Chrome-based, yes.
Are you able to zoom in on the Devtools at all? If we're, because
yes, I will do. Yeah, let me. I should just be able
we need to read it.
Actually, apparently I can't. Can I resize the text only? Oh, there we go. Is that better? Is that getting better?
Yeah, I think so.
Oops.
Bigger.
Let's get that up.
No,
I'm not going to be doing a huge amount in Devtools, but in the source view, most of it's going to be in extensions. So if anyone has a problem with legibility, just give me a shout. Okay, good. So LocalGov Drupal, you should all hopefully be familiar with the document site. There is an accessibility section on here that covers, increase the size of that a little bit, that covers the principles, the sort of approach that we're taking in LocalGov Drupal. A link to some tools. This is out of date. I'm going to update this. A testing methodology, and then a long list of accessibility tests and the success criteria that they relate to, and which can be done, again, in my opinion, manually, automated, or whether you actually need a user to test them. Now, the first thing, let me get a site on screen first. Now, I've pulled a few sites out. So this is just as a start to show that we're not picking on anyone. This is our very early development site for London councils. The first thing that we always do when we're auditing a site is to do an HTML validation on whichever pages we're testing, or the entire site if it's an entire site audit. I'm going to use a few tools. The first one I'm going to use is Arc Toolkit. So Arc Toolkit is developed by the Paciello Group, who are a large accessibility agency based in the US, but with employees all over the world. Quite a few in the UK and quite a few prominent in the UK. People like Steve Faulkner, Patrick Lauker work at Paciello Group. So this is their automated testing tool. And although I'm also going to talk about Axe, and I'm going to talk about accessibility insights. But first of all, I want to talk about Arc Toolkit. This is becoming, and I think even with accessibility insights, this is still probably my favorite tool, because it provides most of the things that I need in one place. So you'll see we have this sidebar and a detail panel. I'm going to shut this drawdown. And one of the things it can do is it can send this URL to Validator. So we'll do a quick validation. Oh, that's actually, let me do that again, because that was actually the accessibility test. So I opened that, let me open that up again. Okay. So if you're used to using HTML Validator, like most of these tools, you're going to get warnings and errors. Warnings are advisory notices that you may wish to address, and errors are obviously known errors. So you'll see here we've got 3 warnings. Navigation role is unnecessary for element nav. Now this is an interesting one. This is one you'll see across most LocalGov Drupal sites, and you'll see across many sites at the moment. Now this is redundant. This is probably in a ideal world, this would fall under the heading of too much accessibility. Nav is an element that has an implicit role of navigation anyway. So this is redundant. However, IE11 does not recognize a nav element as having the role of navigation unless it is explicitly defined, and that's why. And it's the same with all roles actually. So you see, we've got the same warning here for main. We've got a role of main, so we've got this duplication going on across the site, and that's an IE11 issue. So this is another one of those where domain knowledge and understanding the broader issues is quite important, because we could go away and fix these, but then any user using IE11 and the screen reader, like NVDA is a popular Windows-based screen reader that runs on quite low spec hardware. So there may be users out there with IE11 NVDA. If they come to our site and we fix this warning by removing the roles, the explicit roles, they won't recognize those landmarks. Their technology will not be able to detect them. So although these warnings are here, and normally I would like to see this clean and nothing at all in here, we're actually going to ignore those and document it and leave it. I believe Drupal's base browser is still IE11, and until Drupal stops supporting IE11, we should continue to do the same. You can always look at your logs and see what your visitor profiles are like, but you have to make assumptions, because it's quite difficult to see a user agent signature that indicates that someone's using a screen reader. And the other warning we've got here is a section lacking a heading, so I can see which section this is. No front page content has been created yet, so it's this section here. So that's my HTML validation for my site. Now I'm going to pick another that I checked earlier. So I'm going to go to warrington.gov.uk. Now, none of this is picking on anyone. I just went out looking for Drupal sites, in particular in local government, that we could do some testing on. So if I open the same tool, the same process for Warrington, hopefully we'll get some more interesting results. So now we're starting to see some errors, which is good for us for this demo, but not so good for necessarily for Warrington. We've got the same warning that we had on our own site, which is fine. We have an error so this is the opposite problem. So we have a div that doesn't have a role, and this is a problem in this case because it's using an ARIA attribute. So any element that has an ARIA expanded attribute, it means it's controlling the visibility of another element, has to have a role defined. So probably button or something like that. But anyway, I'm not going to go through all of these. I just wanted to illustrate that the first step for me in an accessibility audit is to do an HTML validation. If you've got issues with your HTML, there are more likely to be issues that affect all users, not just those who use assistive technologies or who depend on things like keyboard navigation. So before doing an audit, I would probably want to clean up these errors. If it was a third-party site I was auditing, I would probably take a copy of this document, maybe fix the errors myself, and then run tests on a local copy. Okay. Now the next. So although I've used this Arc Toolkit tool for the validation. The tempting thing now is just to reach and do a scan using an automated tool, and that's perfectly valid. And we're going to do that in a minute. But I just wanted to say that you don't need a tool other than the browser to do a browser and a reasonably good computer to do quite a lot of testing. I would urge anyone who has recently developed a site or hasn't used their site personally for a while to do something like try and navigate the entire site with a keyboard. See how you get on. Use the inbuilt screen reader. Most I mean, Mac has got VoiceOver. I use VoiceOver all the time just to see if there's anything obvious jumps out if there's, when using a site. You can use Narrator on Windows, or I think Orca on Linux, on Ubuntu certainly. And you can also, there's stuff in the LocalGov Drupal docs actually about screen readers. You can also get NVDA for free, and you can get a free version of JAWS, which is the most popular screen reader, that runs for 40 minutes before closing itself down. So these are things that you can do very inexpensively and without a huge amount of knowledge. There's the Paciello group of, there's a page on Paciello group where they share some screen reader commands for accessibility testing, so you can very quickly pick up a screen reader, understand the basic fundamentals and how to control it, and do some basic testing of your own sites. It's probably more valuable as a single exercise than running an automated tool. But anyway, we're here to look at automated tools as well. So close that one. So Arc Toolkit, I'm going to run first. Just move this. So this is very simple. We don't want to show passes. I'm going to run the test. So this will go away and check this page and provide us with a nice table of results where we have errors, warnings, hidden elements. I don't know what this one is. Hidden errors and hidden warnings. And then we have this broken into several groups down the side. So you can see on this page we have one error. So I'm just going to scroll down and find the error. It's under color contrast. If I click on this, it will highlight our one error and our one warning. So I can see that the error is our skip link actually, and we have insufficient contrast. So at the moment, that is a hidden link, which is probably why, if I come back over to here and push access that, I think, let me turn off that overlay. Then when it receives focus, becomes active, that link does have sufficient contrast. So it's only in its hidden state that it has insufficient contrast. It's probably something I would want to fix anyway, because it's noise. It is an error technically, but for the purposes of now, we can pretty much ignore that. The other one is a warning for this icon down here, this RSS feed icon, which is part of Drupal's no front page block. And it can't determine the contrast because it's a background image or a CSS generated image. So you would manually, so this is a warning saying we would need to manually verify that element. We've got some warnings up here as well. If I turn off color contrast, we've got a heading warning. No H1 on the page. Yeah, we know that. I'm going to navigate to an internal page, and we'll run these tests again. So we've got an H1 in the header, suggesting we move it to the main content. This is an issue that I saw on LocalGov Drupal yesterday, is that the main element actually starts down here. The skip link by default was bringing us down to content around here and moving through. So this top piece of content isn't contained within the main element. So that's an issue that I want to go and look at. I want to go and look at the structure of this page and of the templates for LocalGov Drupal. And we have a warning about heading levels being skipped. So I'm not going to go through all of these. It's really just to show you the principles of this tool. Landmarks is quite useful. I talked about landmarks earlier, but they've become much more important recently. I have another extension installed that allows me to list the landmarks on a page. So you can see the 10 landmarks on this page with their labels, their accessible names, and I can put an overlay on as well that allows me to see those. And you'll actually see now I've turned those on, this is our main. So I think arguably, probably quite obviously, this top block here, these two top blocks here should be part of main. So this is a service page, I think. So this is something that we do need to go and look at around how the growth structure of the theme is working out for us. But other than that, it's pretty happy with the way you would see this. Breadcrumbs are properly called breadcrumb. The top header is called a banner. We've got our main navigation properly labeled. Content information as a footer. Footer navigation is properly labeled. So these look like sensible landmarks. But just let's run the same page now on Axe. So Axe is a very well-known tool produced by a company called DQ. DQ, like Paciello Group, are a large accessibility agency expert company. Been around for a long time. I've given a lot back to the community through tools like this. So if I scan this same page through Axe, you'll see that we get far fewer issues. We get no critical, no serious, 4 moderate, and no minor issues. The issues are listed in this table here with the count. So we've got the same problem with heading levels. Axe allows me to highlight that specific error using this button here. So it shows that this is an H3 and this is an H1, and we've got no H2 in between. So generally speaking, you don't want to skip heading levels on the way up. It's quite okay to skip them on the way down. I can also directly access the inspector, so I can see that element in context and flick back to Axe. And more info takes me to a DQ University. Let's open that. With all of the background that you would need to understand this area. If you weren't absolutely sure what this meant, there's a good amount of insight in there and learning. So we have document must not have more than 1 banner landmark. I don't know if ARC picked that up, but we have 2 banners apparently. Because the header element has an implicit role of banner, so we must have another banner. So that's something that we would need to investigate. Ensure landmarks are unique. So that's our 1 banner. It looks like we've got 2 banners overlapping somehow. I don't know. We would need to look into the details of that. But Axe, you can see, is a much thinner, leaner check, where it really just highlights issues that it finds, rather than providing this much more detailed view of ARC Toolkit.
And Dan, sorry, can I just jump in there and say, because it's happened to us, and just so everyone else knows as well, is that GDS are using Axe when they're doing their website monitoring for their accessibility regulations. So even though it isn't shown as much issues as ARC, it's still good to run Axe, because obviously if GDS audit you as they did us, you will need to fix the issues that they've identified. So it is worth just running Axe anyway, just for that alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as I use these more and more, I would probably start with Axe, because it provides a few issues. As you can see, it's far fewer issues than ARC has highlighted, but you can be fairly certain that these are issues that need to be fixed. And as you say, if it's GDS are using it, it makes absolute sense to use Axe itself, or an Axe-based tool. Now, this is the free Axe browser plugin for Chrome or Chrome-based browsers. They also have a commercial service called Axe Beta, which is currently free, but it only runs in Chrome. Now, I'm not a Chrome user, so I haven't been able to test it, but you can sign up for a free access to Axe Beta. At some point in the future, I think it will become a paid service, but that is a more guided experience, similar to Accessibility Insights, which we'll look at shortly. So if anyone looks at Axe Beta, I'd be interested to hear what you find.
Just on this, because I think it's, this is the nub of it for me, is that, when we spot these things, how do we as a group sort of deal with them and make sure that the most people get the benefit from us dealing with them. And I think this is happening sort of a bit piecemeal at the moment. So I can speak from the Croydon experience because I've done most work with Tom there. Is that when their front end dev Chris finds something like this, generally he'll fix it locally and then push it up to the default theme, or even push it up higher if it's more relevant to the skeleton or something like that. But I wonder whether other people either are or want to do that kind of work. And really, how do we coordinate this? Or is it more of a role for us centrally, as and when we're funded to deal with these things? So you don't have to answer any of this now, but it's, I think it's food for thought, really.
I'm going to give my quick view on that, Will, because I've experienced that personally in the last couple of weeks as we've been working on news in London councils. So quite a lot of the styling that I've put on there is opinionated. So what I've done is it's been done in, and the templating has been done in the London Council's theme. And I will, it's almost like a promise. I will try and unpick that and push the generic parts of that back up to the local gov theme, and certainly things like accessibility or structural issues. I've been raising issues on GitHub, and then I think we can take a collective view about what needs to be fixed and what should be at least highlighted for adopters.
Yeah, work in progress.
Yeah. So Axe Beta, just if you go to dq.com/axe/beta, you'll get access to this intelligent guided testing, they've called it. And they are directly placing themselves against accessibility insights. So let's have a quick look at accessibility insights.
Before you dive in, Dave,
yes.
Dan, and your name is now Dave, by the way. We've got 5 minutes left of the scheduled session, but I think let's continue if people can, because this is, for me, it's been really insightful.
I can't see who's here, so if anyone wants to disappear, just go. I won't hold it against you. And I understand that it was a limited time session. I should.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. I should finish this in 5 minutes, and then we can maybe someone else can do some talking, and I can shut up for a little while, because I can just bang on about this for hours if you want me to. So this is Accessibility Insights for Web. It's a Microsoft product. It uses the Axe engine, the Axe testing platform. It offers two main options: FastPass, which I'll select. Just stick that over there. Well, that's not a good example, is it? Let's go back to Paul Warrington. And I honestly aren't picking on this. It really is just a convenient site to test.
Pick Old Croydon. Pick Old Croydon.
Old Croydon.
Yeah.
Or current Croydon.
Well, either, I guess. Put in Tom's head on a block. Croydon.gov.uk.
Okay.
It'd be a good exercise of why this project is so valuable.
This is going, by the way, but
that page is
so.
Oh, my eyes.
So the FastPass on Accessibility Insights uses Axe, but there's a distinct difference. It only reports known errors, so the errors that it is absolutely certain about. So if we ran this same page through Axe, in fact, let's do that. We will get more. We should get more. Looks like someone scuppered it. I don't know how to refresh that. This is a file. Okay, it's not accepted. I can see what happens. Okay, let me go back to this tab and then launch it from there. I was trying to test Accessibility Insights in X. No, okay.
Is it going to test the accessibility of the accessibility site?
I think it might be. Oh no, it's just, I think you've broken it. It's still running.
Amazing.
Let me go back to one that I know works just for now.
The carousel is killing you, I'm sure.
in fact. Sorry, I'm contradicting myself now. Let's use accessibility insights. So this is the fast pass. So this uses axe and highlights any. Did it not find 12 last time?
Well, I've got to drop off, so maybe it'll start working if I'm not looking at it. But
okay.
Cheers, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. My visual help on. Okay, there's an issue with frames. It's a Google Ads frame. Do you have Google Ads?
Yes, it's going, I think.
Right, okay. Let me accept
at some
this.
point.
Okay, yeah. So, and an App Store image. Okay, so it's complaining down here that we have no alt attribute. There's no text equivalent, no text alternative rather for this image down here. So this is kind of thin actually. And I really liked this when I first tested it, but I think the fast pass is of very little use. It provides less in terms of actionable insight than Axe or Arc or most other automated checkers, but because they provide it, the temptation is to reach for that immediately. They have a nice feature which is tab stops, which as you tab around the site will provide a numbered graphical route of your tab stop navigation. So if I was for testing for keyboard users, you can see here I've got a bit of a problem around your banner because it takes me 10 tabs to move from sign in, register down to popular activities. Now I know this is your old site, Will, so or Tom. But this is a very good way, a very quick way of finding keyboard traps or unskippable blocks of links and things like that. But I think the best part of accessibility insights is this assessment tool where there is a set of 24 guided sections. Let's just pick one. Actually, let's go for headings. That has nice instructions. They almost all have videos to teach you about things like landmarks. I think this is probably there's a video called Bingo Bakery that teaches you about landmarks, headings, and tab stops and how they benefit keyboard users and screen reader users. And then guides you through testing these sites. So it tells you how to test. So I can look at the H1 on the site. For some reason, it's not highlighting. It's not highlighting very visibly. So this is our H5 here. So it's asking me, there's an H5, there's a hidden heading here of menu, which is an H5. So that would be a fail from my perspective, because hanging an H5 up there probably isn't very useful for anyone. But this goes into an incredible amount of detail, and this is kind of more detailed than most of the audits we would ever do. So this is probably more targeted at developers, themers maybe, who are working on your sites. Very quickly, one last thing I'll show is just to go back to Arc Toolkit, is to show that this also has a tab order tool. Which site am I on here? I'm not sure I'm on. So very quickly, I'll show you this tab order tool for Lambeth, for Croydon. So this shows you the tab order without having to push tab to see it. So you can see we start at these Google Ads and then move through the navigation. And again, our 13th tab is to the sign in register, and our 23rd takes us to popular activities. So it shows you the route that someone using the keyboard would have to go through to navigate this page.
I just did have a quick question about like whether you're doing any AE tag ATAG testing and the authoring tools, and yeah, maybe we should make a plan for looking at some of that.
I know there's a note in the accessibility docs to say we need to look at the theme at the accessibility of the back end, and I think is it Gin that we're evaluating. I think there are some improvements to come in Claro and Gin. But no, the other thing I'm not hot on is mobile accessibility as well. It's something. Everything I've shown you there is desktop based and keyboard and mouse, and I'm not up to speed on issues with mobile touch interface accessibility. So no, these are areas that we need to examine.
And then the other thing I think is for another session or maybe a breakout session is I'd love to see like how you kind of document all of these tests and produce them into something that's either sort of understandable for yourself or developers or reports if you do reports, and make sure the thing that I kind of my automated tests seem very similar to yours, and then there's some manual tests and just making sure there's sort of coverage of all the things, especially when you're then trying to refer it back to WCAG guideline, and which it's part if not.
I've got a template of old audits that at the moment most of the testing is on our own stuff, so it tends to be you find the issue, you fix the issue. It doesn't get documented anywhere except in a Git commit message. But we do occasionally still do audits for clients, so I can dig out and share an old audit report or one that shows that laid out. We had some work done at London Councils. I don't know if I'd be able to share it, but Nemenza did some audits for London Councils and London Tribunals, and we were responsible for implementing the results. So that was quite an interesting exercise because some of the stuff they did was excellent. I mean, as a developer, it was they just laid it out so easily. So that may be something that we're able to share as well.